Hey, welcome to Spirit Music Meetups. Mike Burris here, and I'm just helping you out a little bit understand this page, the notation page. We're down there in the middle. There's this nice little chart. I'll have this video under it. It says how binary rhythms, those are 2, 4, 8, etc. Multiples of 2, really, 6 could be considered a binary rhythm if you think of it as 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2 phrasing, but generally it's considered ternary. So ternary rhythms are 3, 6, 9, so multiples of 3. And other artificial tuplets. Now, tuplets are groups of notes, and I say they're artificial, and you'll see why. Because we have to put a number above them. So let's look at the top row here. It says note value. Okay, the note here is a quarter note. A quarter note, 1 over 4, right? The fraction 1 over 4. You know, music helps you learn fractions. So 1 over 4 is a quarter note, is the same, think about it, as 2 over 8, right? If you reduce the fraction 2 over 8, you get 1 over 4. If you don't know fractions, just bear with me. So think about this. If we had, think about this, a dollar, a whole dollar, is equal to 2 half dollars, right? 2 halves is the same as 1 whole. It reduces down. And in a half dollar, we used to have half-dollar pieces, there's 2 quarters, because 2 over 4 is the same as 1 over 2. There's 2 quarters of value in a half dollar. So in a quarter, there's 2 eighths. And in some countries, they have eighths. I think they call them pences. P-E-N-C-E. But I'm not, don't quote me on that. But 2 eighths is the same as 1 over 4. So the note value on the top, in the first column, is what's called a quarter note. And if you want to know what note values are, look under straight, BT, the blog topic number 5 underneath, straight, flat, and binary notation values. And then underneath that, BT6. And it'll show you pictures of these notes and how to count them. So under a quarter note in that first column, that's what a quarter note looks like. It's a colored in note with a stick sticking out of it. A saguaro cactus, as one of the students said. Underneath that, you can divide it into 2 eighth notes, and they connect them together with 1 bar, but they don't have to be connected together. They could have one flag, and you'll see that in the other charts. But we're going to connect them together. That's what naturally comes out of a quarter note. But you could artificially divide that into 3 notes, and that's underneath it, and those are called triplets. And so they had to put a 3 above them because it's artificial. It's not normal. So if we counted the note on the top 1 or 2, we would count the note underneath it 1 and. So we have to come up with some way to count those 2 notes. We count them 1 and, 2 and, 3 and, 4 and, as far as you want to go. But underneath it, we would count it 1 da da, because we don't know how to count those other 2 notes. 1 triplet, 1 da da, however you want to count them. But they're technically not, it's not an and we technically can't say 1 but I do often count it 1 but technically it's not an E or an because underneath, under 4 parts, 4 parts are naturally the 2 parts subdivided again. So each one of those eighth notes under the two parts is subdivided again into two 16th notes. They call them 16th notes. I'll tell you why. And so you have two subdivisions for each of the two eighths, because you know 2 over 16 is the same as 1 over 8. So there's 2 16ths of value inside an eighth note, because 2 over 16 is the same as 1 over 8. It's fractions. 4 over 16, 4 parts it says, is the same as 4 over 16. Isn't that the same as 2 over 8? Because 4 over 16, right, can reduce down to 2 over 8. It can reduce down to 2 over 8. But you could reduce that even further to 1 over 4. 4 over 16 is the same as 1 over 4. That's why 4 16ths belong inside the quarter note on the very top. 1 could be 1 and. You can sing 1 and in that quarter note. That's 2 eighths. Or you can sing 1 and you can think 1 and that's 4 16ths. 1 and 1 and. So you see, it has an E and an A for 1 E, and that and is the same as the eighth note and. It's in the middle. 1 E and A. So E's and A's are not technically the same E's and A's in a triplet. 1 E A, 2 E A. But very close. Very close. Closer than anything else you could say. All right? Very close. The E in a triplet is at 0.33. 0.33. An E in a 16th is at 0.25 if you calculate the fraction. The A of a triplet is 0.66. And the A of 16th notes, 1 E and A, is 0.75. So 0.66 and 0.75, pretty close. 0.33 and 0.25, pretty close. So what's happening is the E and the A are swinging out different directions. That's why they call triplets a swung feel. It's a swung feel because 1 E and A. Notice there is no and in triplets. 1 E and A. The and disappears, and the E, 1 E, swings from 0.25 out to 0.33. It swings further away to 0.33. And the A, 1 E and A of 16 notes, swings in from 0.75 to 0.67. So it's just, you got one swinging this way and one swinging this way to make 0.33 and 0.66. But it's artificial. 1 E A. So it's an artificial notation. So that's 4 parts. But you could subdivide that quarter note into 5 parts. Yeah. 5 parts. And notice they made them 16th notes because they're smaller. There's more. It's like 16 notes, 1 E and A. But there's 5 of them. So they had to put a 5. It's artificial notation. They had to fit 5 in there. We don't really know how to count that. It's not 1 E and A. Not even close. You could try, but I just count them 1 da 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 da. 1 da 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 da. 1 da 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 da. So 1 plus da 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 da. 1 da 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 da. 1 da 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 da. So I think odd, 5 is odd, plus 4 is even, da 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 da. 1 da 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 da, 2 da 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 da, 3 da da da. So I like to think of it that way, groups of 2. But in reality, they often think of 5s in groups of 3 and 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So you can go 1 2 3 1 2. But 1 da 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 keeps track of 1 da 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 da, 2 da 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 da, 3 da 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 da, 4 da da da. You know, so it helps me keep track of the count, the beat. So let's look at 6 parts. Well, notice they're 16ths, but they're smaller even than the pentuplets, the 5 parts. Tuplets, pentuplets. 4 parts, 1 eanda. I guess you could call that quadruplets, but it's 1 eanda. 6 parts, well, halfway through 6, right? 3 and 3 equals 6. So halfway through has to be the and, right? So now you're taking the 2 parts, triplets up there, the 2 parts, 8 notes, right? 1 and you're dividing the 1 not into 1E, 2/16. You're not dividing the and into and 2/16. That's the normal way. That's 2 parts into 4 parts, right? You're going to divide now that 8th note, 1, into 3/16, right? 1 da da. And the and 8th note into and da da. And that's why you can say 6 parts sounds like 1 da da and da da. 1 da da and da da. 1 da da and da da. It's triplets, so you could put 3 and 3 together. You could show 3 and 3, but you know, seeing 3 and 3 next to each other, I've seen that. 1 da da. So it looks like 8 notes, you know, with 1 bar, but then they'll subdivide it into 3 and 3. So you can still see the 8th note 1 bar, but then you see 2 bars and 2 bars. 1 da da and da da. But usually they just put a 6 above it. And Sept Tuplet. That's what they call it. Sept Tuplet. 6. It's not 6 tuplet. They call it Sept Tuplet. Don't ask me why. Maybe they come up with these names. Sept Tuplets. 1 da da and da da. 1 da da and da da. 2 da da and da da. So that's one way to count Sept Tuplets. 6 parts. It's artificial because we got to get 6 of them in there. Now, you could count it 1 EE. So like you 1E instead of 1E and you could think of just say 1 EE because it's pretty close to an E, but those 2 E's are pretty close to an E. They're on either side of it. 1 EE and The uhs are very close to the So you could say 1 EE and Now, how does that rate? That 6 relates to the 3, right? Isn't a sextuplet 6 just the 3 subdivided to 16 triplets for every 8th note triplet? We said that you could count 8th note triplet 1 da da, but you could count it 1 e Well, there's the E. So it's 1 E. That belongs to the first 8th note triplet. 1 E. E and is the second 8th note triplet. Is the third 8th note triplet. 1 E, E and So remember, there's always 2 somethings in something, right? So 2 16th note triplets belong in an 8th note triplet. So you got 1 E, E, 1 E, E and And that's 8th note triplets. 1 E, 2 E, 1 E, E and 2 E, E and So you can count those 16th note triplets while you play 8th note triplets. You see, because they belong in there. 2 over 16 is the same as 1 over 8, right? Even within triplets. 2 over 16th triplets, right? Triplets, artificial, is the same as 1 over 8 triplets. So that's why you can count 1 E and because if every other one is the 8th note triplet. 1 E, E and So that's why you can count 1 E, E and That's why you can count 8th note triplets. 1 E So that helps you understand that, and then you can get into 7s, and believe that is called a Sept Tuplet, SCP Sept Tuplet, or they just call them sevens. That's even smaller than a 6. And again, you could count it 1 and 3 groups of 2, dada, 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 because the dada, dada, dada is 6. 1 dada, 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 2 dada, dada, dada. So I just think dada, 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 3, right? And that's your 6. 1 dada, 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 2 dada, 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 3 dada, 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 4 dada, 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 1, right? So that's a good way to think of sevens. But again, sevens oftentimes are phrased as 4s and 3s. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's another problem you run into, is it might be thought of or accented differently. All right, so that's the first column. That's explaining what we normally see in like 2/4 time, 4/4 time, 3/4 time. Anytime the quarter note is the beat, right? The quarter note is the count. Now, the second column is getting weird. What if we have the note is a half note? Well, we know a half note is equal to 2/4, right? 2 over 4 is 1/2. That's that fraction thing. That's what you see. The second row shows that there's 2/4 in a half. So we could count 1, 2. That half note could be counted 1, 2, because there's 2/4 in a half. All right? 2/4 in a half. The 3 parts, well, we have to show it's artificial, so we have to show that 3 again. So now we show 3/4 instead of 2/4. We can't count it 1, 2, 3. We can only count it some other way. So you say, how am I going to count it? Well, I'll give you a little hint. If you divide the quarters into 3s, right, into triplets, 1 right, 1 2 Then if you count every other 8th note triplets, 1 2 if you count every other, right, because there's 1 there's 2 8th note triplets in a quarter. 1 2 1 2 So you could count those quarter note triplets. 1 because as soon as you see a quarter note, you say 2 8ths. 1 that leaves 2 1 2 So quarter note triplets are 1 1 but I don't think of them that way. I think 1 2 I count the 8th note triplets, the stuff in between, right, in the space, and I play every other 1 2 Some people like to go triplet. They just slow themselves down, but it's actually triplet, 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 triplet. It's 2 triplets, triplet, triplet. Triplet, 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 triplet. So you have to say triplet, triplet. 1 2 1 da da 2 da da. But if you say da da, you don't know what. 1 da 2 da da. 1 da 2 da da. So that's hard to do. So that's why I like 1 Now it says 4 parts. 4 parts is the natural subdivision, the next natural subdivision of 2 parts. See, if you subdivide each of the 2 parts, well, 2 divided by, it's 2 times 2 is 4. You get 4. Each quarter note breaks into 2 8th notes. And so you got 2 8th notes and 2 8th notes. So you got 4 8th notes. So it's subdivision again. You're subdividing the quarter note into 2/8. Well, we know that from the first column. A quarter note equals 2/8 notes. And why are they grouping them together, connecting them all together, just so you can see they all belong up to that half note on the very top. On the very top, it's a half note. They just want you to see they all belong together. They're grouped together. You don't have to write it that way. You can have flags on every single one of them. But it's good to see they belong to that half note. Because maybe that half note is the bass part, the pulse of the music. Anyway, 5 parts, well, you got to show that instead of 4 parts, it's going to be 5 parts. So I connected those together, and it's a 5 above it, a pentuplet. Again, I don't know how to count that. It's not 1 and 2 and, right? It's not like 4 parts, 1 and 2 and. So I'm going to say 1 da 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 da. Okay. And then 6 parts, I am staying with these 8th notes. I'm staying with the 8th notes. 6 8th notes. I think it should be 16th notes. I don't know why it's 8th notes. Let me just see here. Let's see if this. Because if you take a quarter note, because up there in the 2 parts, you have 1 and 2. 1, 2. If you broke those quarters into 3/8 instead of 2/8, right? They're 8th notes. Instead of 1 and 2 and, you broke them into 3 parts. It'd have be 1-ia, 2-ia. And that's how we would write 8th note triplets, 1-ia, 2-ia. Just like column 1, the 3 parts, 8th note triplets. So we're going to put those 2 8th note triplets, 1-ia, 2-ia together, and it's going to make 8th note sextuplet, 6. That's why it's 8th notes. 1-ia, 2-ia. Quarter notes are broken into 3, and 3 is 6, and that's smaller than a pentuplet, 5. Or you can do it into 7s, and then that would be 1 da 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 da. See how I do it in da 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 da? 3 dadas. So that's how that works. Now, got to understand this dotted note in the 3rd column. A dot adds more length, more value to the note. Okay? It's going to be longer than a quarter note. A quarter note is 1 and. We saw that in column 1. 2 parts, 1 and. 2 8th notes is equal to 1/4. Or 4 parts, 1 and a. But normally, a quarter note, you just think the next level down and counting 1 and. But a dot adds 1 more of those, 1 and 2. 1 and 2. It's 3 8th notes, 1 and 2. It's not a triplet. It's not artificial anymore. It's 1 and 2. That's the 3 8th notes. Technically, you could say it's 1/2 of the value of the quarter note. Well, what's dot means add 1/2 of the value of the quarter note. Well, a quarter note is 2/8, 2/8. So 1/2 of 2/8 is 1/8. So 2/8 plus 1/8 equals 3/8. That's a lot of math to do in your head while you're playing. As soon as I see a dot, I think 3. I see 3 of what I normally count. 1 and 2. I just go longer by 1 more count. So you can see a problem here under the 2 parts, the next row down. It has a 2 above it. Well, that's artificial because it's normally 1 and 2, 3 parts. That's the third row, 1 and 2. See, it looks like a triplet, right? Down there in the third row where it says 3 parts, it looks like a triplet, but it doesn't have a 3 above it. So it's just 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. So it's not 1 E, 2 E. So if that's the natural way to count it, 1 and 2, or and 3 and, or whatever you want to, it's just 1 and 2 and 3 and. Then the second row, that 2 above the 2/8 notes, that's artificial. How in the world are you going to count that? Wow. I'll show you. I'll show you that in a minute. Let's go down to 4 parts. That is artificial also. That is artificial also. Those four parts are artificial because 4 parts don't fit into 3 parts. So you're going, how do you count this? And the 5 parts is artificial. And I'm just going to go 1 da 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 da. So on 5s and 7s, I always go 1 da da da. But so now let's go down to the 6 parts. This is going to help us count the other ones. So we got 6 parts. Okay, normally, and so if 3 parts are counted 1 and 2, right? 1 and 2, then you subdivide each one of those, be 1E into 16ths, right? 1E and a 2E. 1E and a 2E. That's your 16ths. 1E and a 2E. 1E and a 2E. 1E and a 2E. That's your 3 parts divided into 2s, so 2 times 3 is 6. That's how you're going to count 6 parts. 1E and a 2E, and then the next one would be and a 3E and a. So you got to keep track. So, based on that knowledge that you have of how to count 6 parts, can we count 4 parts? Can we figure that out? I don't know. I know we can figure out 3 parts, 1E and a 2E. 1E and a 2E. I believe, just like with artificial 1E, 2E, those things are those E-Us that I'm using, they aren't real. So what you could do is you could think the E, so you can think 1, you could say 1 and, but it's not and. So I'm going to go 1E, 2E. So how do I find out where that duplet is? Maybe I could go 1E, count in triplets. 1E, I'm going to pause for a second. So one of the things you can notice is when you compare the 3 parts against the duplet, the artificial duplet, the 2, notice that second note, you could you count the 3 parts as 1 and 2, right? So maybe you could count 1 and 2, 1 and a 2. So it's sort of close, right? You got to have something before 1 and 2. You got to have something between and 2. And we know 1E and a. So it's not an exact thing. 1 and a 2. 1 and a 2. 1 and a 2E. 1E and a 2E and 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 1E and a 2 and 1E and a 2E and 1E and 2E. So maybe that's as close as you're going to get. to learning how to play a duplet, because again, it's a feel. It's not exact. So 1 E and a 2 E, 1 E and a 2 E. So that is right there, smack between. So that's how I would count a duplet. And then you would say, well, how do I count 4 parts? Right? If you compare the 4 to the 3, you can kind of see that it's sort of like, well, this is 1 and 2. So it's like 1 and 2. So it's like 1 E and 2 E. So I'm playing the 4 down here. 1 E and 2 E. 1 E, right? So that maybe something like that. 1 E and 2 E and 1 E and 2 E. 1 E and 2 E. You know, just to guess how to count that 1 E and 2 E, you know, that duplet. I find these things very difficult. I'm glad I don't see very many of them. It's like a polyrhythm. The rhythms don't quite line up. 1 E and. So that 4, you could just say, I don't know how to count that. Just go set your metronome. 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You got to have 4 evenly spaced notes, and it's got to start on the 1. So it's a feel. You got to set up a metronome and get this feel. And the 5 is even worse. 1, 2, 1 da da. So 1 da 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 da, 1 da 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 da, 1 da 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 da, 1 da 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 da. Instead of 1 da da da, 1 da da da, 1 da da da, 1 da da da, 1 da da da. So very confusing when you see. I'm glad I don't see very many of them. You have to really have a metronome and play them over and over and over to get the feel of these tuplets. And the 7, oh my goodness, now we're getting into something smaller, so it's 16 notes. So that's crazy. This last column is the dotted half note. So how many counts in a half note? 1, 2, and a half note, right? 2 over 4 is the same as 1 over 2. 1, 2, a dot, 1, 2, 3. So that's what you see under the 3 parts. 3rd row down. 1, 2, 3. That's the natural way to break it. Then you break each of those up. 1 and 2 and 3 and. That's the 6 parts. So those are the natural. Everything else is artificial. And so, you know, how do you count these things? It's with great difficulty. With great difficulty. 1, 2, say, how do you count the duplet in row 2? 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. So I counted. I said, oh, maybe I could count 1 and 2 and 3. 1 and 2 and 3. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and it worked. So because I compared, what I did is I looked at the 2 parts and compared it to 3 parts. And I went, oh, 1, 2, and that next note is sort of between the and the 3. So I just said, well, I'll call it an and. 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, and 3. There's actually a document I have on counting polyrhythms. And as I remember, what you have to look at is the duplet says, okay, you see the 2, you say, oh, we got a 2. So we think 1 and. That's the trick. You say, oh, that's the number of subdivisions. It's not just the number of notes, but we're going to use that 2 as a 1 and. That's the number of subdivisions. But we're going to subdivide the 3, 1 and 2 and 3 and. 1 and 2 and 3 and. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to subdivide the 3 parts, 1 and 2 and 3 and. I'm going to count it like that. You see, I gave it a 2 subdivisions, 1 and 2 and 3 and. But it says there's 3 parts, right? 1 and 2 and 3 and that's going to be the length that we count. 1 and 2. That's the length, 1 and 2. This is really hard to remember this. So the top one told me the number of subdivisions to put into the bottom one, 1 and 2 and 3 and. And then the bottom one told me the number to go across, 1 and 2. 1 and 2 and 3 and. And that tells me how to count the 2 parts. Isn't that confusing? I have a document on that. So that's exactly how you count it. 1 and 2 and 3 and. So I went every 3 subdivisions. So I guess I could go back and figure out that third column. So, and we could use that same idea to figure out 4 parts versus 3 parts. 3 parts we know how to count. We don't know how to count 4 parts, right? We do not know how to. So we could use that same methodology and say, well, one of these tells us we don't know how, the 4 we don't know how to count, tells us to divide. It tells us to divide the 3 parts into 4 each. 1e and a 2e and a 3e and a. There's your 4 parts. 1e and a 2e and a 3e and a. But the 3 tells us to go every 3. 1e and a 2e and a 3. 1e and a 1. Yeah, oh yeah, it's telling us how. 1e and a 2e and a 3e and a. See, it told us how to do it. And there's our 3 count. 1e and a 2e and a 3e and a 1. And that's how we play 4 parts. If I haven't confused you, I'm going to get that document out and I'll try to put it over here so you'll know how to count this. So a 5, how do you count a 5 against something we know, which is a 3? Well, the 5 tells us we have to have 5 subdivisions. 1 da 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 da. That's all the way I know how to count. 1 da 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 da. 1 da 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 da. So you might want to find some other way to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then it says we're going to put that in to the 3 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's the three counts under 3 parts. But then it says we've got to go every 5 of those subdivisions. Wow. Okay, I'm probably very confused on that. Let me think about this for a second. Okay, I got it a little messed up here. Yes, it's 5 subdivisions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But the 3 is saying count every third of those. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, there's the first 3, 4, 5, 1, that's the next 3, 2, 3, 4, that's the next 3, and then 5, 6, I got messed up. I can't read this. 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6. No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2. And there it is. And then 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There it is. We got them all. So that's how you get all 5. 1, 2, 3. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And every one of those accents is one of those notes under the 5 parts. Ay, ay, ay. So that's hard. That's polyrhythms for you. So there's a way to count all these. Thank God we don't see too many of them except in contemporary music, wacky music. Most music you'll never see all that stuff in. 6 parts is just 1 and 2 and 3 and their 8th notes. And the 7 we'll have to do that whole thing again. Sorry for such a long video. Counting can be really difficult when it comes to this artificial notation. You know, thank God that most artificial notation is just 1 E, 2 E, 1 da da 2 da da, or 1 da da and da da, 2 da da and da da. You know, triplets and sextuplets. Thank God. We hardly ever see duplets. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and, or 1 E, 1 E, 2 E, 3 E, 1 E, 2 E, 3 E. You know, so there's easy ways to count these things. Thank you very much for your patience.